Welcome back once again. Franchise Players Podcast, episode 6. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Durrel.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to episode 6. We have a beautiful show ahead of us, so stay tuned. Let's get it.
Yes, Sirski. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So, Ja Morant successfully undergoes season-ending shoulder surgery on Thursday. He played 9 games in totality this season. He missed the first 25 with the suspension. So my question to you is, how will the rest of the Grizzlies season pan out? Do you think they vie for play-in or playoff contention, or do you think they just go ahead and try to tank? So talk to me, bro.
It's very unfortunate right now, especially with what's developing over there in Memphis, especially with the injury Ja Morant just sustained. With his arrival, they were on a pretty good trajectory, right?
Yeah.
Winning the last 6 out of 10 games, and Ja Morant's looking like the old Ja, So it's just very unfortunate. But unfortunately, right now with the Grizzlies record, they're currently 14 and 26, 14 and 26.
Shaky.
Yeah, right now. So, which is the 6th worst record right now in the NBA. So right now, I do believe the Grizzlies are closer. Excuse me. They're closer to a lottery than play-in, right? So, especially with their current roster, they do not have enough talent to outplay the likes of the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, as well as the Utah Jazz to propel them into a play-in position, right? And additionally, they do not have a point guard that can orchestrate the offense like Tyus Jones did when Ja Morant was out last season, right? So right now it just looks like they are a lottery team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. I mean, also, one point that I want to add is Desmond Bane just went out with I think an ankle sprain.
Come
So
on,
you're
yes.
missing him for, I don't imagine it to be a super long time, but you're still missing him. You still have a ton of ground to cover. Like you said, there's competitive teams kind of within that, I want to say 7 to 11 range in the Western Conference based on how stacked it is. So it's going to be a tough uphill battle, especially after losing your superstar player, Ja Morant. Like you said, they don't have that depth anymore. They're missing Tyus Jones. He was an elite PG. He got paid from the Wizards.
100%.
You're missing Dylan Brooks. You're missing Steven Adams. So to me, I'm on the same wave as you. I think you take a step back. You'd be like, okay, had a ton of unfortunate things happen this year in regards to our health and what the aspirations were initially in the beginning of the season. So maybe look to Zaire Williams, look to Santi Aldama, look to David Roddy, look to Vince Williams, some of the younger guys, and just develop them, get them some run in. There's still like more than half of the season to go. Get them some run, and then just see how they look by the end of the season. Maybe add some pieces come this off season. Ja Morant's going to come back healthy next season. You get Steven Adams back as well, and then just see where it can take it.
Exactly. I am definitely with that sentiment, because currently they do not have enough talent, right? So right now is the best time to get those young guys going, let them understand the NBA game flow, and just get that experience under the belt. So come next season, they are somewhat oiled and ready to go when Ja Morant is back and at 100%, right? And additionally, Marcus Smart has been completely a disappointment this season, right? So he has been completely inefficient, right? Okay. Defensively, I don't think he had. Well, personally, I don't believe he has the defensive prowess as he did back in the days in Boston, right? And
wow, okay,
yeah, 100%. And Ja Morant is just their identity, and them losing that identity is just gonna hurt them real bad this season. So obviously, to your point, it's an amazing time to give those young players, time to just harness their skills, get that experience, and help propel the team next season going forward. And additionally, they're currently in a lottery position, so let's add one more piece to assist Jaren, Bane moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back to what you said about Marcus Smart, I don't necessarily agree, bro, because he was injured like a large portion of this season, so maybe
Mm,
that's some of the reason for his inefficiency woes. But nonetheless, just the addition of Marcus Smart, he's more of a defense first type of PG. He's not really a PG that's going to facilitate like a Tyus Jones did. Tyus
mhm,
Jones was an incredible pick and roll operator. He was an incredible facilitator, driving cake type of guy. Marcus Smart, I think, was a lesser version of that and more a point guard with a strong defensive identity. So I just think the play styles differ. And as far as like him being inefficient, I think that's again like we were saying about the Memphis Grizzlies and just their misfortunes. He's been injured like to start the season as well, so he hasn't been able to get on track to
yeah.
really be that Marcus Smart that we saw, like you said, like 2 years ago when he won the Defensive Player of the Year. So that's super unfortunate. Now, Durrell, one thing you mentioned the LA Lakers being one of those teams kind of within that 7 to 11 range that the Memphis Grizzlies would have to eclipse to kind of be in the playoff or play in contention. So I'm sure, you being a Raptors fan, you saw Darko Rajakovic speaking in a post-game presser. Speaking in a post-game presser after the loss or the 1-point loss, right, to the LA Lakers. I believe it was on Tuesday night.
Mhm,
Um, so, of course, everyone knows this big story in the NBA right now. The LA Lakers had, I believe, 23 free throws in the fourth quarter to the Raptors 2.
mhm.
So, a lot of people are saying this game was fixed, this game was rigged. I just want to hear your perspective on that, and also what you thought about Darko's passionate post game rant.
Yeah, of course. When the opposing team shoots about 21 more free throws than you in the fourth quarter, there is going to be some questions raised, some eyebrows raised, and so on and so forth, right? There is no way that the Raptors, first and foremost, only had 2 free throws attempts in the fourth quarter, right?
Mhm.
Scotty Barnes, he's an aggressive attacker to the basket, right? So currently he is tied for, I believe, fifth in fourth quarter scoring, and the
Yeah,
fact that he had 0 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter, that is extremely baffling. As well as Pascal Siakam, he's an amazing slasher as well in this league. For the fact that he didn't get any free throw attempts, yeah, the list goes on and on. The Raptors have a roster that's filled with slashers, and the fact that they had only 2 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter, that is extremely questionable and concerning as an NBA fan, right? So
yeah,
with that being
yeah.
said, at the end of the game as well, there were some late game fouls which kind of ballooned the actual the free throw disparity. I do believe there was like 8 free throws that was taken within the last bit of the game there, which kind
Mhm.
of ballooned it up to 23. So even if you cancel out those 6 to 8 free throws, you're looking at maybe a 16-2 disparity, which is still a 14 free throw disparity between the Raptors, right? So definitely, I think that the league has to look into that. The refs have to be accountable for the actions. I'm just sick and tired of the referees getting a bailout because the NBA says, hey, if anybody criticizes the referees, they will be reprimanded, which means that they'll get fined upwards of $25,000, which I do believe is wrong. I do believe that the officials need to be held accountable. They need to be held at a higher standard. This is the National Basketball Association. If this was, pickup ball, high school basketball, even at the collegiate level, I may understand that. But in the NBA, where players are um, as as athletic as they are in this era, and the opposing team only shoots 2 free throws attempts, that's concerning. But Rio Darakovic, I got to tip off my hat to him. Right. So definitely he's here supporting his players, supporting his troops, and also he's a very calculated individual. Right. So the fact that he came to the presser, he knew exactly that, hey, I do not care. I'm about to get fined $25,000, but I'm going to stand up for my guys today. They came out tonight. They competed,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
they weren't getting the respect that they deserved. And I think with him is the respect that his players are not getting. That's the frustration. That's where his frustration stemmed from, right? Obviously, stating that, hey, we have a future All-Star in Scotty Barnes and the potential face of the NBA
Yeah,
on our squad, and nothing happened. That's also very calculated because now the entire NBA is now is now focusing on Scotty Barnes' game. So obviously now that's going to ramp up some additional votes because I do believe he's getting, a little shafted here when it comes to the All-Star game voting because some of the cats that are ahead of him, it's a popularity contest, right? But Scotty Barnes, you name it, man, he does it. He gets it done offensively and
for
defensively.
sure. Yeah.
As well as Pascal Siakam, he's a two-time all NBA player. So the fact that those guys were not getting the respect in late game is completely blasphemy. And also, it's LeBron James. Obviously, LeBron, he is, quote unquote, an all-time great. Also,
Quote unquote.
you also have Anthony Day-to-Day Davis on the other side, getting all calls because they're flopping. That's one thing that really bothers me about that Lakers team when you really watch them play. They are masters at flopping. Like everyone flops. It is preposterous. Like it's such a it does such a disservice to the league, and that's why most if you listen to other athletes from other sports talk about the NBA, they say the NBA is completely soft. It makes sense when you have the face of the league flopping on on every single play. Right, foul baiting, baiting. I think that's something that the NBA and David Stern and Adam Silver need to revisit and start penalizing these players for foul baiting because that's just taking the integrity of the game away.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great points that you mentioned there. I think you're absolutely right in many facets. I mean, look at the Lakers after the in-season tournament. They're kind of falling apart, 3-10 since the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious based on the game that especially towards the end there was a larger discrepancy towards the amount of calls made for the Raptors, for the benefit of the Raptors and for the benefit of the Lakers. And it just kind of makes sense, when you think about the Lakers, when you think about the fact that LeBron James is one of the most popular players and one of the best players on top of all time. When you think about the super large fan base that the Lakers have, when you think about even the addition of, which might be sort of a controversial take, but even the addition of so many different sports books and kind of that whole sports betting scene, especially within the NBA, kind of growing within maybe the past 5 or so years. I feel like it's more likely now than ever for something to happen. And Darko's right. When you have an all NBA caliber and all NBA level talent like Scotty Barnes, who's driving to the rim, albeit against an all defensive talent in Anthony Davis, and not getting calls on clear fouls, it just goes to show, and it's just clear as day. And I think for a nationally, I believe it was a nationally televised game, right?
Can't remember, my guy.
Okay. Regardless, like for the amount of people that were watching the game, it was a bigger game of the night regardless. And for the amount of people watching the game, I just think it was like pretty blatantly obvious. Now, one thing I will say is when I went back and I tried to look at the plays again and see really what the discrepancy was, I don't think it was as bad as I initially thought it was, to be perfectly honest, because the biggest concern to me is the consistency. So
yes,
it's like, okay, if you're gonna call a foul like on a Austin Reeves, like that Austin Reeves play, for example, that's the one a lot of people want to point out. I can understand why the foul was called, but then when you have essentially a very similar play on the other side of the ball where the Raptors are on offense and the Raptors player doesn't get a foul, it does really help me pinpoint that moment as a clear indicator that, okay, like it's probably, and
there's
then
a bias.
There's a bias, like there's multiple of those possessions that you're just seeing time and time again. So, I definitely agree that it was probably, something where the refs wanted to help them towards the end of the game. And as far as Darko Rajakovic, you got to tip your hat out to Rajakovic. Like you said, he's a very passionate coach. He's very, he's a player development coach, and from what I've heard from his tenure with, I believe, the OKC Thunder and the Memphis Grizzlies, don't quote me on that, but he's doing with multiple franchises regardless. He's had great relationships with his players, and he sticks
Yep.
up for his players. He cares about them, even if they're like, for example, him and Dennis Schroeder, even when he wasn't the coach of the Raptors, he was still like, him and Dennis Schroeder still had a great relationship, and it just goes to show the character that Darko has. And I love seeing a coach, especially a first year coach, really come in and really embrace the Raptors organization, embrace the players, and just have their back regardless, because Darko's not an idiot. He knew that there was going to be some severe fine associated with the comments that he said. I mean, they weren't, it wasn't like how a lot of the other coaches will go about, post game pressers, and even if they're frustrated, right? He really went out there and said, like, you pretty much shouldn't have told us to come to the game if it was going to be fixed. Like, that's essentially what he was saying.
Yeah,
which
100%.
which is like, I've never really seen too many instances of that, just within my time of watching the NBA. So shout out to Darko. There's been a lot of frustrations, I think, in general between the players and fans just not being satisfied with the whistle this year and the officiating. I think that's kind of been a general consensus amongst everybody, really. So it's a shame that in such a hard fought game, there would be calls like this. It's like, just let the guys play and be consistent. If it's a foul on one end of the ball, it's a foul on the other. There's no picking and choosing. But again, that's the NBA, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. So let's go ahead and transition into the other team that's located in Los Angeles, the Clippers, who actually just signed Kawhi Leonard to a 3-year contract extension for $153 million. So my question to you, Durrell, is this a good move or a bad move for the Clippers?
I think it's an amazing move. Kawhi Leonard, he is currently one of the all-time greats that we currently have in the NBA, right? So his resume speaks for itself, right? So my guy is a 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time Finals. He's been 2 championship teams, right? And he has been a star player in those championship teams that he has been a part of, right? And then additionally, Kawhi Leonard this season so far has stayed on the court. Right, so one knock about Kawhi Leonard is the fact that he is always hurt and he is never on the court. But I believe now the Clippers have enough players that can at least alleviate some stress from Leonard, and also you can see that he's not playing as many minutes as he once was. They have, because right now that Clippers team is extremely deep. They have enough depth pieces to ensure that Leonard is he's getting the rest that he needs, right? And additionally, when Kawhi Leonard does play, he is arguably one of the most dominant players that we do have in the league today, right? So that 3-year contract, it is definitely warranted, right? So I would definitely take the Kawhi Leonard right now on this current Raptors team. I do believe any other team, I do believe any other team in the NBA will accept Kawhi Leonard with open arms to their team and also to their organization, right? And additionally, when you look at that team, that Clippers team right now, they are on a hot streak, right? Because everything is flowing. And I believe that they've won 17 out of their last 20 games, right? That is chemistry. That the chemistry is there. Harden is fitting extremely well. He's meshing extremely well with that that unit. Paul George is also healthy, which also helps this team. So you have 2 elite wing players in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You have arguably one of the best point guards in the league in Harden, right? And you have a deep bench, right? So now when you look at their bench roster, you have a Westbrook coming off the bench. Dude, as a second unit player, the last player I'd want to be going up against is a fired up Westbrook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And secondly, you have Stormy Norman coming off the bench, and he has been extremely important for that Clippers organization, as well as that Clippers team. When he comes in the court, when he comes in on the court, dude, he is electrifying. I've never seen him shoot this efficient as a player. But obviously, when he was in Raptors, there were flashes, there were glimpses of him being a good shooter. But now that he's in his prime as a Norman Powell, he's a little bit more consistent with the jump shot, right? And additionally, you have Zubats. There was a game a couple of nights ago, I believe it was against the Lakers. He had a damn near 20-20 game,
He's an
right? So
animal.
he's an animal on the boards, right? So this team, they have exactly a beautiful roster to compete for an NBA championship. The only problem that they may have is they do not have a Jokic stopper. Well, nobody in the NBA has a
Mm.
Jokic stopper, so I do believe that's going to be a great test for them to figure out a scheme around Jokic, but that's easier said than done, right? So I do believe that that contract is definitely warranted, and also believe that's that's one of the first dominoes to fall for this Clippers organization for them to take that step to the land of promise, right? So then obviously, hopefully, Harden resigns, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's in store for the Clippers. Obviously, after this season, they are moving to the new arena, so it will be great to have a star in at the new arena to attract, obviously, attract fans, also to generate revenue as well, right? The last thing that an organization wants is when they move or relocate is not to have any damn near fans have no stars to attract fans to the games. So once again, it is a warranted contract for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fantastic move for many
Hmm.
reasons, like a lot
Hmm.
of them that you just mentioned. So he's 32 years old.
Hmm.
So a 3-year contract for one of the greatest two-way players ever,
Yep.
one of the greatest playoff performers ever,
Hmm.
and a two-time Finals MVP. That's going to take him straight into his age 35 season. I think the Clippers did a phenomenal job lining up this contract extension.
Hmm.
You're paying him handsomely, but again, for all those reasons I just mentioned, for the reasons you just mentioned, it's fully warranted. I mean, you gotta you
Easily
the board man gets paid.
gets
We all
paid.
remember. We all know he gets paid, and he deserves it. Like he really does. The only con that I could possibly see from this is his likelihood to get injured. That's the only con, because when Kawhi Leonard is on the court, he is going to perform to the best of his ability on both sides of the ball.
100%.
Um, so I just when I saw that contract extension, I'm like, cool. Like if it was maybe 5 years, I'd be like, all right. The fact that he's injury prone and maybe he's going to be going to like what his age 37 season, maybe it's not the brightest move, man. 3 years, 50 mil, basically. I think
Very
50
well.
here and then 50 for the next two after that. Beautiful. Not mad at
Mhm.
that at all. Shout out to the Clippers.
Yeah, 1%. That was an amazing move by that organization, and I love the way the Clippers have turned around that organization. Steve Ballmer has done an amazing job turning around that organization from being quote unquote the Lakers' stepbrother to from them actually having their own
Jeez.
from them having their own identity, right? So I do believe,
Yeah.
and I would love to see them win a championship or bring a championship to the Clippers fans. I do believe that they do definitely deserve it.
Yeah. Yep. So speaking about more contract extensions here, but this time it's not a player, it's a coach. Erik Spoelstra agreed to an 8-year, $120 million contract extension, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. The $120 million total is the largest deal for a coach in North American sports history. Durrell, I know you're gonna have a great take on this one. What do you think about Erik Spoelstra's contract extension?
That is a very rich contract for a coach. But
Mhm,
Eric
mhm.
Eric Spoelstra, he has been there through thick and thin, and his players believe him. He's just as you mentioned about Darko Rajakovic. He is a player's coach as well. He develops his players. He believes in his players, right? And
Yeah,
also instilling a winning culture and a winning identity in that hit organization. It all stems from him and Pat Riley, right? So he's been obviously being mentored by Pat Riley in his younger days. I believe he was an intern when he did start when he did start in the NBA, and then from that point on, he then became a head coach. And at a point in time, he was one of the youngest head coaches in the league, coaching
right.
LeBron James and so on and so forth. So he has experienced every single thing a coach, every single success, every single downfall, every single pitfalls a coach can experience, and each year he bounces back, right? So every single year we always count the Heat out. We always count
Yep.
Miami out. Like
Every year.
every single year, we're like, hey, the Heat, they do not have enough talent. And next thing you know, they're in the finals. The Heat,
Yeah.
they do not have enough finals. Next thing you know, they're sweeping Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So each and every single year, it all comes down to it all comes down to the belief, right? When the players believe in the coaching staff, they believe in the organization, and they also believe in the regime that is being thrusted upon them. They're gonna come to each and every single game and give it their all, right? So as a leader, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to instill this confidence in your players, right? So prime example, look at Gabe Gibson, obviously bearing injuries. When he was in Miami, he was arguably one of the best shooters in the league at the time. But then where is he now? He's nowhere to be found, right? Same thing with Max Strus. Max Strus is still balling in Cleveland, but I believe he was more successful in Miami, right? So for me, it's like this Heat culture, especially when it comes to their fitness level, they have a high standard of expectation. Right. So
Right.
if you do not meet this standard, then you do not fit the Heat culture. So that's one thing I do love about that Heat organization. Erik Spoelstra is part of that Heat culture, and he's instilling that till this day. So that extension there is definitely warranted, especially what he has done with the talent level that he has had within the last 5 years. I believe within the last 5 years, Miami Heat has made 2 NBA Finals, a couple of Eastern Conference Finals as well, and also as an 8 seed, as a play-in team, knocking out the first place team in the East, and as well as going all the way to the NBA Finals. It all starts from the coach. Believing in his players, and I do believe that contract is definitely warranted. Exposure, congratulations, is well deserved.
When you think about certain franchises like
Mhm.
the Toronto Raptors, when you think about the Miami Heat, when you think about the San Antonio Spurs, for example, those are franchises that, like you put, Durrell, they instill a winning culture, and they're among the best at player development.
Yes, 100%.
So again, a part of instilling that culture is the head coach. So when you look at a guy like Erik Spoelstra, who's in his 16th year with the Heat, he's gone to 6 NBA finals in 16 years. He won 2 rings, multiple playoff berths. It's crazy. It's crazy, and he's one of the most winningest coaches in NBA history. And I'm elated for him, because when you look at a guy like Monty Williams, who doesn't quite have the resume that Erik Spoelstra has, but he was able to get the previous highest NBA contract of all time, that was a little surprising to me, because I didn't really understand like how he deserved it. Sure, he had that finals berth with the Phoenix Suns, but Erik Spoelstra in every sense of the word deserves it.
100%.
Because of all the playoff success, instilling that winning culture, taking heed to Pat Riley's mentorship and translating it into one of the most successful NBA coaching careers of all time. It's just I'm so happy for him. If you were to ask me today who's the best coach in the NBA, it's Erik Spoelstra. And I'm sure that opinion wouldn't differ from many of the other frequent watchers of the NBA, people who analyze the NBA, whoever it may be. They would all say Erik Spoelstra's at least within the top 3 best coaches in the league today. Like, there's no doubt about it. Yeah,
Spoelstra, Mike Malone, those guys are definitely up there for sure.
Yeah, Tyronn Lue, Nick Nurse. Like, there's a handful of guys that you could say, okay, like these guys, those guys are the real deal. And Erik Spoelstra's top of the heap, cream of the crop. Yeah.
And you made an amazing point there. So it's a guy like Monty Williams. What has he really proven in the NBA so far as an NBA coach that warranted that previous all-time record there for a coach salary? He had accomplished nothing, right? All he has accomplished is getting bounced in the first round by the Dallas Mavericks, and as well as always having, obviously you had talent. He had talent, but that's about it. Right, but
that finals appearance in 2021 was probably like the highest peak of his NBA coaching career. But I mean, at the end of the day, You lost that finals, and like I don't know, I just found he wasn't the adjustments that he was making in the finals. A lot of people thought at that point in time was the reason why they lost. So
questionable. And also to that point, how much of that championship run was, you know, the coaching, and or was it the addition of Chris Paul?
right,
Because Chris
right,
Paul is an extension of a coach on the floor, and Chris Paul arguably is one of the smartest players to ever step foot on the court, right? So
right.
especially,
Yep.
he had an amazing pick and roll game with DeAndre Ayton, as well as he had an amazing wing player in Michael Bridges at the time,
Mm,
and additionally, Devin Booker ain't no slouch offensively. He's a gunner, right? So I do believe Chris Paul should get more should have also more of the credit for that success. What was it, like 2021, as much
right.
as much as Monty Williams as well, right? But at the end of the day, this is not a Monty Williams discussion. It's about Erik Spoelstra. So his contract was definitely warranted. He, to your point, made 6 champion. He has brought his he has brought his team to 6 championship. So he has won 6 championships within the last 16 years, which is amazing. So that's if that put him in the rankings with the guys like Pat Riley. Sorry, with guys like Greg Popovich, guys like
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson's, and so on and so forth. Right now, and he's still young. This guy has so much coaching left in him. So he might finish being a top 5 coach of all time, just in terms of wins and as well as championships won. Right. All he just needs a for sure talent, like an all-time talent, and it's game over. Right. And also another thing it's extremely hard as a coach to just to coach talent, especially the fact that he had a guy like LeBron James, Wade, and Bosh. The
Right.
fact that he was able to garner that trust from those guys at such a young age, because he started coaching those cats at a very young age. The fact that he was able to, get those guys to buy into the system, get a guy like Chris Bosh to accept that third man, that third option role. That just speaks volume as who he is as a person as well as a coach.
Yeah, like getting Chris Bosh from the Toronto Raptors, he was always the first option there. Getting him to buy in as that third option, getting him to understand, getting all those guys to balance out their egos, knowing they were all probably going to be 3 future first ballot Hall of Famers. So yeah, what you're saying, it just speaks volumes to what Erik Spoelstra has done as a coach. So let's go ahead and jump into our next topic here. So this player, one of the greatest scorers, one of the greatest players in the history of the game. I believe he's top 10 in scoring. Carmelo Anthony. He has a new podcast. Highly suggest you guys go ahead and check it out. It's called 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. Yeah, he has some great conversation on there. And on his newest episode, he mentioned 2 pretty controversial statements or conversation-worthy points, to say the least, and they're making rounds in the NBA media space right now. So the first thing that he said that was a little questionable, a lot of people raised an eyebrow, or maybe you didn't, depending on how you took it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, RJ Barrett is just a bland player. He either gives you 2 or 26. So knowing, Durrell, how big of a Raptors fan you are, and our recent acquisition of RJ Barrett in exchange for OG Anunoby, what did you think of this take by Carmelo?
That is preposterous. Obviously, from the small sample size that we've gotten so far, based on RJ Barrett's ascension with Toronto, he has been amazing. So I think within the first like 5 or 6 games as a Raptor, he's shooting approximately 50% from downtown, averaging approximately 25 points, like 20 to 25 points. I really don't have the stats right in front of me. He hasn't scored under 10 points since he's been a Raptors fan. And I do believe that some of these players, they just like hearing themselves speak. So they just speak a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and they don't truly analyze or even watch the game, right? To truly see exactly what some of these players are capable of. RJ Barrett is looking amazing. Obviously in New York, dude, that's a high pressure environment to play in, right? Especially for a rookie coming in at such a young age. and with all that expectations thrusted on him, dude, ain't no way any player at that age will be able to witness, uh, to, not even witness, will be able to stand the time of of that pressure.
Yeah. You know the funniest thing, Durrell, was literally I think the day after Carmelo said that, or the same day, I can't recall.
Mhm.
RJ Barrett scored 4 points in that blowout loss to the Utah Jazz. So I just found the timing was just so on point with what he said, because RJ Barrett prior to that, like you said, had been tearing it up for the Raptors. And
Oh
the thing is like
man.
players are allowed to have a bad game. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But to call RJ Barrett a bland player, okay. RJ Barrett is 23 years old. What player is in their prime at 23 years old, outside of LeBron James and Luka Doncic, which are like, and even they weren't in their prime at that age. But you know the point I'm trying to make.
Mhm.
RJ Barrett is 23 years old. He's allowed to have bad games. I understand Carmelo's point where he's RJ has been inefficient, but like to your point, the fit wasn't the greatest with the Knicks, and I just think that was kind of an unnecessary comment, to say about somebody who's 23 years old. He's going into his 5th NBA season. Um, he came into the league really young, and I just think the sky's the limit for him. He now has a change of scenery, and I think he's going to be great for the Raptors. And I didn't really, when I heard that, I thought, if RJ was 28, 29, okay, maybe you could call RJ bland if, he was playing like a bland player. But to see him, even on the Knicks, I wouldn't call him bland. I would just say, there's still a lot to his game left to be uncovered. There's a lot more development that needs to happen within his own personal growth within the game of basketball. So yeah, I didn't love that take, and I also didn't love his take, his other take that I was about to jump into, where he essentially calls the Nuggets petty for letting Nikola Jokic have the number 15,
Mhm.
in which Carmelo Anthony wore during his tenure with the Nuggets. I know that you mentioned you had a couple points about that just previously. So what did you think? What did you think about this take from Carmelo?
At the end of the day, Carmelo, how many championships did he win while rocking a number 15?
Goose egg,
Exactly. How many conference titles did you win as a Denver Nuggets player?
goose egg. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
additionally, you forced your way out of Denver. Like they were building a team around you, but you wanted to play in New York, right? So you disrespected the organization that had your back at that time, right?
Mhm.
So the fact that you wanted to leave the organization, they're now in a rebuilding, essentially in a slow rebuild. Obviously, with that trade to New York, Denver got a heap of talent. Uh, Back in return. Obviously, because of Masai Ujiri, Masai was able to fleece New York once again. All
Shout out to
right, so
Masai.
yeah, so obviously doing that trade to New York, Denver was able to get the likes of, I believe it was Chandler Wilson, Danilo Gallinari, and a couple other assets, as well as draft picks for Carmelo. Obviously, that was able to at least bring those to at least keep the Denver Nuggets afloat, right? And so to that point, it's you put this upon yourself. If he had stayed in Denver, they would have at least respected his contributions to the organization, right? But then a guy like Jokic got drafted to the Nuggets. He was a second round pick. I do not believe that anyone from the Nuggets organization believed that Jokic was going to be the player that he is today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So obviously that number 15 was it's very unfortunate, Carmelo. It is very unfortunate that Jokic has done more in 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 your jersey than you did. So it is very
Damn,
unfortunate. Yeah, it
damn,
is very
that's
unfortunate.
crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so Carmelo Anthony with the Denver Nuggets, 4-time All NBA, 4-time All Star, NBA Rookie Challenge MVP, and took them to the the Western Conference Finals once. That there's nothing there that really stands out to me outside of maybe I think the 4 times that he was All NBA, it was second and third team. So within 8 years, you get bounced in the first round for the majority of them, and you make it to the West Finals only once in 2009.
Yeah.
I'm on board with you here. I mean, I don't see how the Nuggets were petty. Don't get me wrong, all the listeners. Don't get me wrong. Carmelo Anthony, tremendous talent, fantastic scorer, one of the greatest isolation scorers in the history of the NBA. But to say that he should
100%.
have his jersey retired, the resume with the Nuggets doesn't quite stack up to what I believe a player that deserves to get their jersey retired, you know, looks like, right? And then the Joker just came out and said he said that he's been wearing the number 15 his whole life. So I I just think that, he wanted the number, and Carmelo didn't really, he's a Hall of Famer career-wise. You could even say that the Knicks were really the prime of his career. So why would the Denver Nuggets feel like, okay, no, we won't give Nikola Jokic, another young player who they believe in, like the number 15? So that was again another questionable take by Carmelo for me.
Yeah, so as a Raptors fan, that's like Chris Bosh saying Raptors were extremely petty for giving Scotty Barnes his number.
Yeah, literally, basically, basically.
Get out of town, my guy. Once again, you signed with another team, so it's not just being petty; it's just not business as usual.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand why Carmelo wanted out. I mean, at
Yeah.
the time, I think in 09, they weren't. I think the Nuggets weren't really in a position to pay guys that had helped bring that team in 2009 to, or that team, past that Western Conference Finals appearance, back to, serious playoff contention. I think they were kind of looking to rebuild a little bit, and that wasn't what Carmelo wanted. So I will give him points for that. I mean, obviously, if the team, that you're trying to win with isn't necessarily going in that direction, or they want to save money, Denver's like a smaller market team, then I can understand you wanting to leave. But this whole take about him, the Nuggets being petty about not maybe retiring or giving the Joker number 15, it's like, Melo, come on, bro. I don't think you did enough with the Nuggets.
Yeah.
That
was a very dumb take, if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Yeah, honestly. All right, so the next thing I wanted to bring up here was the Bulls Ring of Honor ceremony, where the late Jerry Krause, and for all the listeners who maybe aren't up to speed with Jerry Krause's legacy, but he was essentially the GM of the Chicago Bulls during the Michael Jordan tenure, in which they won all those championships. His surviving wife, Thelma Krause, was booed after her husband, again Jerry Krause, was announced and ultimately recognized at the ceremony. Reception was left a lot to be desired, and a lot of people were not happy with how the Chicago Bulls fans reacted to somebody who's A, deceased, no longer with us, and B, his elderly surviving wife came to receive his honor, receive his accolades for him, which I thought was pretty low on count of the Chicago Bulls. So Durrell, I want you to tell about the Chicago Bulls fans, sorry. So I want you to tell me about talk to me a little bit about this and what you thought about the reception there.
I believe that reception was completely uncalled for. It was completely disrespectful. Especially you have an elderly woman, honoring her late husband, right, and that reception that she received was completely disrespectful to her late husband.
Uncalled for.
Yeah, right. So 100%. So one thing that these fans need to understand, that hey, there are two sides to the coin each and every single time, right? You also have the game. You also have these players, their private life, their private livelihood, right? So you can't get the two involved, and that's what happened. Now you're booing a woman who had nothing to do with some of the decision that was made in the past, right? Obviously there could have been additional championships won, but hey, hindsight is only 50-50, right? So the game of sports is, at that point in time, you have to move your chess pieces, so make sure that you set yourself up for success, right? Obviously, not every single general manager is going to make the right moves or can predict the future. So some moves that are being made could also be the benefit or the detriment to the team, right?
Right.
So it's that reception there was completely uncalled for, was unacceptable, and I do believe that I'm apologizing on behalf of the Bulls fans to that lady, just because she did not deserve that disrespect.
Yeah, she didn't deserve it at all. And you know what?
Mhm.
The excuse that I'm seeing a lot, like on Twitter, Reddit, different forums, and things like that, just the general consensus online is I'm getting the fact that the reason why so many Chicago Bulls fans dislike or even hate Jerry Krause is because Jordan obviously is, a prime sports figure still to this day, and he's been
Yeah.
retired for 25 plus years, and Jordan didn't like him. And in The Last Dance, in Michael Jordan's documentary, essentially Jerry Krause was kind of was painted as maybe he wasn't the perfect guy. Maybe he made some questionable character decisions when he was the GM of the Chicago Bulls, but I think ultimately when you look at the relationship between the fans and Jerry Krause, it should be more positive, right? Because he put on one of the most successful stretches as a GM in, I think, North American sports history and probably world sports history, to bring six championships to the Chicago Bulls, and to be able to place certain players on this roster that made sense, with a duo, with a tandem of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. It just speaks volumes to what he did. And regardless if you like him or not, there's no reason to boo. It's like, okay, you know what they always say, right? If you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. So this man is deceased, and his late wife is there, like you said. Like she had nothing to do with any of this. So I just thought it was distasteful. When I looked at poor Thelma's face when I watched it, I was just like, really, like she's crying. She doesn't even want to get up and
Mhm.
wave or really acknowledge the moment. She just felt insecure. She probably felt defeated. She probably felt confused. She probably didn't know that it was going to be like this, or else she probably would have attended. So it's just, it's a really unfortunate situation. And I hope, like all sports franchises, especially in the NBA, because we're in tune to this news, like people outside of the NBA might not know. I hope we, as fans of different teams, and we kind of avoid being so invested into the politics and invested into the relationships between players and GMs like that, because at the end of the day, like you said, sports is, it's just a business. And as long as they're doing as long as they're helping our team be better, and they're not doing anything immoral or unethical, we shouldn't disrespect people in this light, because at the end of the day, they have a job to do. People get hurt all the time. People's emotions get hurt all the time, and it's just not fair. It's not a good, it's not a good look either. Like this guy, you know I'll say it again, like he put on one of the greatest tenures as a GM, running this Chicago Bulls machine for however many years. I think it was like 10 plus years. So yeah, it was just distasteful. I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable to watch. And I just hope we can all learn from this.
Yeah, 1% happens all the time. Even I believe it was a couple months ago when Kawhi Leonard was playing at San Antonio and he was getting booed by the fans, right?
Yeah.
All right. So then Popovich had to, pretty much mid game grab the mic from the PA and made a statement stating that, hey, our organization does not do this. This is not us. We are better than this, right?
Yeah.
So at the point in time, I do believe someone from the Bulls organization should have stepped up and said something at that point in time, like, hey,
Mm.
this is not acceptable. We we are here to celebrate life, celebrate our legacy, celebrate an amazing legacy,
Yeah.
and this is
Hmm.
uncalled for. This is uncalled for. And at the end of the day, once again, sports is a business. That's something that these fans need to understand. When everything's a business. Business decisions are made each and every single day, and it's either you like it or you don't like it. And if you don't like it, it's out of your freaking control. So shut up.
Right. Yeah. One thing that you said, about how somebody like a spokesperson for the Chicago Bulls should have came out and kind of put the fans in their place, kind of like Greg Popovich did
Mhm.
during that Spurs and Clippers game. Like I think it was about a month ago or so. it's funny because my girlfriend actually said the same thing, and this is from somebody who, my girlfriend doesn't watch basketball. She doesn't know about Jerry Krause, and she doesn't know about the dynamic between him and the Chicago Bulls, or him and Michael Jordan. And she said the same thing. She's like, someone should have went up there, and someone should have said something. Someone should have, kind of put these fans in their place and said, hey, this isn't the time or a place, like you said, Durrell, to really express your discontent for somebody who should truly be honored for his legacy, like you said. So the next, or the last question that I wanted to jump into with you here is concerning the officiating. So we had a conversation earlier in the pod about the Lakers and Raptors game and the questionable calls. I have been seeing a lot of frustration, a lot of knocks on the officiating in the NBA, and I wanted to hear your opinion on what you thought about the officiating this year, and if you've been seeing some of that same negative reception that the officials have been getting this year, and if you agree or disagree with it.
I definitely do agree with it. I do believe that the efficiency at the rate that these officials are officiating the game has drastically decreased. Right. As my thing is once again, as we alluded to earlier in the podcast, is the consistency. Right. So if you are going to make a call at one end, make sure you make the exact same call on the other end. Right. So from our end, when we see that, our only reasoning is it's a fix. Right. And also back in the day, we had the officiating was so much better. Right. If I do understand the game is getting faster. The players are extremely athletic. It's harder to call some of those fouls in real time, right? But all we ask is for consistency of the calls, and I do believe that the standards that I think the NBA holds these referees at is at an all-time low, right? So you have these refs. You have these refs retaliating to these players showing emotion. Basketball is an emotional sport, right? So if I dunk on somebody, like, give me the opportunity to truly express that that adrenaline. That's a whole lot of adrenaline that's flowing through my body, and especially at that point as men, that's a ton of testosterone flowing through us. You know what I mean? So it's not me being disrespectful or being distasteful or whatsoever. It's just that I'm just expressing myself in that manner. Basketball is a game that most players use to alleviate any type of stress or even escape any additional trauma that they're dealing with. Right. So when I get on that court, I want to express myself freely. And the NBA is taking that away from the players, right? So the fact that you can't really, the fact that you can't even say anything back to the referees. I do understand there's a line that you cannot cross, but at least, like, hey, understand where I'm coming from. Don't just shut me down because you think that I am attacking you. I'm attacking a character. That's not the case. It's like, hey, I just want to understand why that foul wasn't called on this end, but it was called on the other end. Can you just give me a quick explanation? Right? Yeah. Because it's the exact same thing. And then most of the time, these referees, they have zero patience for questions, but they're quick to throw the technicals. So once again, I do believe, especially watching these games, I do feel the consistency is low, the efficiency of the officiating is low. I do like that they are coaches challenges now that you can use that you can use to challenge a certain call during the game. But even at times, man, during those coaches challenges, there's some fouls. I'm just like, yo, hold up, wait a minute. Prime example was the Lakers versus the Raptors game when Emmanuel quickly did a euro to the left, and then his elbow clipped Cam Reddish on the jaw. That was a basketball move. He was sweeping through, but unfortunately, Cam Reddish's face was in the vicinities of his elbow, so it was incidental contact, right? As an NBA fan, as guys who play basketball, that's a basketball move. But then officials came back and stated that that was a flagrant on top of that, and Emmanuel Cook got fouled out of the game. So
Right.
it's the consistency, and hey, give us just give us a clear depiction of what's a foul, what's a flagrant, what's a flagrant two, and so on and so forth. Because the officials now, they're just leaving so many questions unanswered.
You know what? I think they do give a clear definition of what a foul, a flagrant one, flagrant two is, but I think the problem is nobody agrees with those definitions, and it's
One
been
hundred
like that
percent.
for like multiple years. Like we don't agree. Like for example, that example that you just laid out for us, Emmanuel quickly doing a sweep through a legal basketball move, hitting Cam Reddish in the face. If like that ends up being they upgraded it to a flagrant one, and that's just simply like how could that possibly be a quote unquote flagrant as per the definition, right? The
Hmm.
definition of the NBA, it is, but we don't agree with that. Like I think like and that's not the only instance. Like what you're saying about the taunting, the NBA I found was far more entertaining, um and that's the goal ultimately of the NBA, to be entertaining so that fans can pay for tickets, pay for jerseys, watch the games, pay for, cable subscriptions and whatnot, pay for NBA League Pass, whatever the case may be. Like it's a business here. And why would you take away aspects of the NBA in which all of the fans love? Why would you make flagrants, so easy to attain? Why would you, negate taunting and things of that nature? So I'm fully in alignment with what you're saying, because it just doesn't make sense. When we play, like say Durrell, like you and I have hooped together, when we
Hmm.
play like at the gym or we play outside, it's just like we want to be able to express ourselves. Sometimes you get a really nice and one, and you're not disrespecting the ref, you're not disrespecting the player, but you just want to flex a little bit, or strut your stuff, so to speak, show a little swag on the play. And it's just like you can't even do that anymore. And players have come out and have said, like, they're taking the love away from the game. What happened to the
Yeah, exactly.
love, right? Different fans have said it too, and it's just it's unfortunate. And I hope we can kind of take a step back, maybe this off season, and hone in on what truly makes for an
Yeah.
exciting basketball game. And I think it comes down to a consistent whistle, and maybe reworking what some of the fouls ultimately mean, right? Like the flagrant one shouldn't be as easily attained, because there'll be ridiculous plays, and even the commentators are commenting on it. And these are guys that are have plenty experience in the game of basketball too, right? Like Reggie Miller, you got um his name is blanking right now, Mike Brown. You have a bunch of guys. Doris Burke has been doing this for a long
Excuse
time, and,
me.
and a ton of people are just kind of beside themselves with like, how is that a flagrant one? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not loving it. They're taking away it's just
The
not
human
fair.
aspect of the game. Yeah.
Taking away the human aspect of the game is not fair. So
Yeah, and also another thing I do understand is obviously they want the game to be as as clean and sportsman-like as possible, right?
mhm.
Obviously, if there's some taunts that can go overboard, we do
Right,
understand that.
for sure.
Once it goes overboard, then at a point in time you can start, taking a couple steps back. Maybe you can throw a tech, but
Mhm.
but when it comes to a player just expressing their emotions, let them express their emotion,
Yeah.
so it's and just taking the fun away from the game.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely. I hope I hope this offseason, like I said, they'll be able to take a look at some things, and make some changes. We know that probably won't happen, but we can only dream. Durrell, I think we're gonna go ahead and end the episode there. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. This was episode 6 of the Franchise Players Podcast. If you're on YouTube, throw us a like, throw us a comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're on a streaming platform, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating. We would truly appreciate it. But before we go, Durrell, you got anything to say to the people?
Yeah, once again, Franchise Players Podcast listeners, viewers, once again, thanks for tuning in. We have an amazing year in store for each and every single one of you guys, so stay tuned. We really appreciate the love. Yeah, let's get it.
Let's get it. All right, y'all. We out of here. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.